In many maximum security prisons across the United States, meals are not shared experiences. They are transactions. Food enters the cell the same way every day, through a narrow opening in a solid steel door. The opening is controlled from the outside. It is opened briefly, just long enough to pass a tray. Then it closes again. In facilities such as the federal Supermax system, including institutions like ADX Florence in Colorado, individuals can spend between 22 and 24 hours a day inside a single cell. Movement is restricted. Contact is limited. Meals are taken alone. This method of food delivery is not incidental. It is part of a broader structure designed to maintain control, reduce interaction, and manage risk. Officers do not step inside the cell during meal service. The barrier remains intact. The tray itself is standardized, typically made of hard plastic, segmented into compartments. Each section contains a portion determined by institutional guidelines. Caloric intake is regulated. Nutritional requirements are calculated according to federal and state correctional policies. Menus are planned in advance. In many state systems, they operate on a cycle, often repeating every 2 to 4 weeks. Breakfast may include items like cereal, bread, or powdered eggs. Lunch and dinner often consist of processed proteins, starches such as rice or potatoes, and a limited serving of vegetables. Portion sizes are consistent. Variation is minimal. According to reports from the Federal Bureau of Prisons and multiple state correctional departments, the cost per inmate meal is kept low. In some systems, it averages between $1 and $3 per meal. Budget constraints shape both quality and variety. In maximum security units, especially those designed for administrative segregation or long-term isolation, meals are sometimes modified further. Items that could be used as weapons are avoided. Utensils, when provided, are often made of flexible plastic. In some cases, finger foods are used instead. The process is efficient. It is repeated multiple times a day across hundreds of cells. There is no dining hall in these units. No communal seating. No shared space where individuals gather to eat. The act of eating is separated from social interaction. This separation has been documented in numerous studies examining the psychological effects of isolation. Research published in journals such as the American Journal of Public Health and reports from organizations like the National Institute of Justice describe how prolonged solitary confinement can affect cognitive function, mood regulation, and perception of time. Meals in this environment become one of the few markers of the day. Morning, afternoon, evening. The arrival of a tray signals the passage of time more reliably than clocks. Inside the cell, space is limited. The tray is often placed on the bed or on the floor. There is no table. The design of the cell does not prioritize comfort. It prioritizes durability and control. The materials reflect this purpose. Stainless steel, reinforced concrete, tamper-resistant fixtures. Inmates adapt their routines around these conditions. Some eat immediately. Others wait. There is no requirement to finish the meal at a specific time, but the next tray will arrive on schedule regardless. Food temperature varies. In some documented accounts, meals arrive warm. In others, they are described as cold by the time they reach the cell. The distance between kitchen and housing unit, combined with security procedures, affects delivery time. Complaints about food quality are common in grievance records across multiple prison systems. These records are part of public documentation. They reference issues such as portion size, temperature, and repetition of meals. However, official inspections generally focus on whether meals meet minimum nutritional standards. Those standards are defined by regulatory bodies and are subject to periodic review. Religious and medical dietary accommodations exist within the system. Kosher and halal meals are provided in certain facilities. Special diets for conditions such as diabetes are also documented. These meals follow separate preparation guidelines but are delivered through the same controlled process. The isolation of eating extends beyond the physical act. There is no conversation, no shared observation, no external stimulus beyond the immediate environment of the cell. In long-term segregation units, this routine can continue for months or years. Former inmates, in sworn testimonies and documented interviews, have described how daily routines become highly structured around limited events. Meals are one of those events. Along with brief periods of recreation, often in another enclosed space, and occasional showers, they form the basic framework of time. Correctional officers follow strict procedures during meal distribution. The timing, sequence, and method are regulated. Each cell is approached individually. Each tray is accounted for. Security concerns dictate the pace. In some high-security units, inmates may be restrained during certain movements, but during meal delivery the barrier of the door is considered sufficient. The design minimizes unpredictability. From an operational perspective, the system is consistent. It reduces variables. It limits direct contact. It allows a small number of staff to manage a large number of individuals. From the inside of the cell, the experience is defined by repetition. The same door. The same slot. The same motion. A tray appears. A tray is removed. The environment does not change. Over time, the sensory experience remains constant. The lighting does not dim. The sounds are limited. Footsteps in the corridor, the metallic sound of the slot opening and closing, the distant movement of carts. Studies on sensory deprivation and restricted environments have noted that limited variation in stimuli can affect perception and mental processing. These findings are referenced in correctional policy debates and legal challenges concerning long-term isolation. Court cases in the United States have examined these conditions. Some have addressed whether extended solitary confinement constitutes cruel and unusual punishment under the Eighth Amendment. Outcomes vary by jurisdiction, but the documentation provides a consistent record of how these units operate. Within that record, meals are a fixed point. They are not designed to provide comfort. They are designed to sustain. The system does not pause. It does not adjust based on individual preference. It continues, one tray at a time, through a narrow opening, into a space that does not change. The contents of the tray are determined long before they reach the cell. Menus in U.S. maximum security prisons are developed through a combination of nutritional guidelines, cost controls, and logistical constraints. Dietitians, contracted or employed by correctional systems, design meal plans intended to meet minimum daily caloric and nutrient requirements. These plans are documented. In many jurisdictions, they are subject to review during inspections and audits. The result is consistency. A typical meal includes a protein source, a starch, a vegetable, and sometimes bread or a dessert item. Milk is often included, particularly in state systems, as part of meeting calcium requirements. The protein is frequently processed. Ground meat formed into patties, or pre-portioned servings prepared in bulk. In some facilities, soy-based substitutes are used to reduce costs. These substitutions have been the subject of legal complaints and public reporting, particularly in cases where inmates alleged adverse health effects. Courts have generally required evidence of nutritional deficiency or harm before intervening. The starch component, rice, pasta, or potatoes, is used to provide caloric density at low cost. Vegetables are typically canned or frozen. Fresh produce is less common in maximum security units, due in part to storage limitations and shelf life concerns. Portion sizes are measured. Standardization allows institutions to control inventory and predict demand. It also reduces disputes over unequal distribution. In central kitchens, meals are prepared in large quantities. Industrial equipment is used: steam kettles, convection ovens, large-scale mixers. Food is portioned onto trays along assembly lines. Once plated, trays are loaded onto carts. From there, they move through secured corridors toward housing units. The process is timed. Delays can affect temperature, but the schedule is maintained to ensure all units are served within a set window. In maximum security facilities, especially those with segregation units, the final stage of delivery is slower. Each tray must be handed through an individual slot. There is no bulk distribution at the cell level. Inside the cell, the meal is received without exchange. No conversation is required. The inmate inspects the tray visually. This step is routine. Grievance records show that inmates often note discrepancies, missing items, incorrect portions, or substitutions. If an issue is identified, it may be reported through formal channels. These processes are documented but can take time to resolve. In the moment the tray remains, the act of eating begins. There is no table. The body adjusts to the available space. Some sit on the bed. Others crouch or lean against the wall. Utensils, when provided, are basic. Flexible plastic spoons are common. In higher security settings, even these may be restricted depending on risk assessments. Food texture is shaped by mass preparation. Items may be soft, uniform, or blended in consistency. This is not accidental. Uniform textures reduce preparation time and simplify distribution. Temperature varies. In documented inspections and inmate accounts, meals are sometimes described as lukewarm or cooled by the time they are consumed. This reflects the distance between preparation areas and housing units, combined with security protocols that limit speed. There is no option to reheat. There is no alternative selection. The menu is fixed for that day. Hydration is managed through small cartons or access to the sink. The sink unit, integrated into the cell structure, provides potable water. This is confirmed in facility standards and inspection reports, though complaints about taste or clarity appear in some grievance filings. The pace of eating is not externally enforced. However, the environment influences it. With no external activity, the meal becomes a focal point. Some individuals eat quickly. Others extend the process using it to mark time. Research on institutional living environments has noted how routine activities can take on increased significance when variability is reduced. In isolation settings, even minor events, such as meal delivery, can structure perception of the day. In maximum security units, this structure is consistent. Breakfast arrives early. Lunch follows at midday. Dinner is served in the late afternoon or early evening. The intervals are predictable. Between these points, time is largely unbroken. Food, in this context, is not only sustenance. It is one of the few recurring changes in an otherwise static environment. There are exceptions within the system. Special management units and disciplinary housing may use alternative meal forms. One example, documented in several state systems, is a restricted diet often referred to in public records as nutriloaf or similar formulations. This is a dense, baked mixture of standard meal components, designed to be nutritionally complete while limiting misuse of individual food items. Its use has been challenged in courts. Rulings have generally upheld it when used for short durations and when nutritional standards are met. These measures are not universal, but they illustrate how food can be adapted as part of behavioral management. Religious accommodations introduce another layer. Kosher and halal meals are prepared under specific guidelines. In federal facilities, these meals are often pre-packaged and sealed. They are stored and distributed separately to maintain compliance. Medical diets are also documented. Inmates with conditions such as hypertension or diabetes may receive modified meals. These adjustments are prescribed and monitored, though implementation can vary between institutions. Despite these variations, the delivery method remains the same. The tray passes through the slot. The door stays closed. Inside the cell, the act of eating is contained within a few square feet. There is no variation in setting. No change in lighting. No external reference point. The meal ends when the tray is empty, or when it is set aside. At a designated time, the slot opens again. The tray is removed. The exchange is silent. This cycle repeats. Across days, weeks, and, in some cases, years. The system records the distribution. It confirms that each individual has received a meal. Beyond that, the experience is not observed in detail. It takes place behind a closed door. Out of view. Consistent. Measured. And unchanged. After the tray is removed, the cell returns to its baseline condition. There are no signals to mark the transition. No audible announcement. No visible change in environment. The light remains constant. In many maximum security facilities, lighting is controlled centrally. In some units, it stays on at all times. In others, it is dimmed slightly at night but not fully turned off. Policies vary by institution, but continuous or near-continuous illumination is documented in inspection reports and legal filings. The absence of natural light is common in older or more restrictive housing units. Windows, if present, are narrow and reinforced. Their placement limits visibility. In some cells, the only view is a strip of sky or a section of exterior wall. In others, there is no direct line of sight outside. This environment reduces external reference points. Time is not observed in the usual ways. Without clocks, shadows, or regular social interaction, individuals rely on routine events to estimate the passage of hours. Meal delivery is one of those events. So is the occasional movement of staff in the corridor, or the scheduled opening of the door for recreation or showers. Between these events, the cell remains unchanged. Studies on restricted housing environments have examined how individuals adapt to this structure. Research published by the National Institute of Justice and other academic institutions notes that the lack of environmental variation can affect concentration, memory, and the perception of time intervals. These findings are based on documented observation and self-reported accounts from individuals who have spent extended periods in isolation. The routine inside the cell is self-directed within strict limits. There are no assigned tasks unless the facility provides in-cell work programs, which are not universally available in maximum security units. Personal property is limited. Items typically include basic hygiene products, a small number of books if permitted, and possibly writing materials. Access to reading material depends on institutional policy. In some facilities, books are distributed through controlled library systems. Television or radio access is restricted and not standard across all high-security units. Without external input, activities become repetitive. Walking short distances within the cell. Sitting. Lying down. Standing near the door. These movements are constrained by space. Standard single-occupancy cells in maximum security units are often between 60 and 80 square feet. The physical environment does not support extended activity. Exercise, when permitted, takes place outside the cell. In many high-security facilities, recreation occurs in enclosed areas, sometimes referred to in public records as recreation cages or individual yards. These spaces are also controlled and isolated, limiting interaction with others. The schedule for recreation varies. Some individuals receive 1 hour per day. Others may receive less, depending on classification and institutional conditions. Between these scheduled periods, the cell remains the primary environment. Silence is not absolute, but it is consistent. Sounds travel through corridors, footsteps, distant voices, the movement of carts, the opening and closing of doors. These sounds are intermittent and often indistinct. They provide limited information. In documented accounts, some individuals describe listening closely to these sounds as a way to track activity outside the cell. The door itself remains closed. Constructed of solid steel, it blocks visual contact. Communication, when it occurs, is indirect, through the door, through ventilation systems, or during controlled movement. Policies governing communication vary. In some units, speaking between cells is discouraged or restricted. In others, it occurs informally despite institutional rules. These interactions are not consistent. The dominant condition is separation. This separation extends across all aspects of daily life. Meals are taken alone. Sleep occurs alone. Time passes without shared reference. Research into long-term confinement has documented a range of psychological effects associated with these conditions. These include difficulty with attention, changes in sleep patterns, and altered perception of time. These findings are cited in legal challenges and policy discussions but are not uniform across all individuals. Institutional records focus on behavior and compliance. Mental health services are present in many facilities, but access can be limited by staffing levels and security protocols. Evaluations, when conducted, are documented, but the frequency and depth vary. From an operational perspective, the system functions as designed. It maintains order. It limits movement. It reduces direct contact. Inside the cell, the individual adapts to the structure. Routine becomes the primary framework. Without variation, small actions take on increased significance. The timing of a footstep outside the door. The brief shadow under the door frame. The sound of a slot opening in another cell. These details are observed, repeated, and stored. They form a pattern. This pattern is not officially recorded, but it is experienced consistently. The interval between meals becomes measurable in these terms. Not in minutes or hours, but in sequences of small, repeated events. A tray arrives. A tray is removed. Then the waiting begins again. There is no visible countdown. No indication of when the next tray will come, beyond familiarity with the schedule. Over time, that familiarity becomes precise. Individuals learn the approximate timing of each meal. They anticipate it. Not through external signals, but through accumulated repetition. In this environment, anticipation does not change the pace of the system. The schedule remains fixed. The door remains closed. The light remains constant. And the space remains the same. Until the next opening in the steel door. And the next tray is passed through. Across maximum security prisons in the United States, the system operates with consistency. Meals are delivered. Cells remain closed. Schedules repeat. This structure is documented in policy manuals, inspection reports, and court records. It defines the daily conditions for individuals housed in the highest levels of custody. The design is deliberate. Facilities are built to prioritize control, predictability, and safety. Movement is limited. Interaction is reduced. Every process, meal distribution, recreation, medical access, is governed by procedure. Food within this system serves a defined purpose. It meets basic nutritional standards established by correctional authorities. It is prepared in bulk, portioned with precision, and delivered under controlled conditions. There is no variation based on preference. No adjustment based on individual routine. The tray is the same format. The method is the same. The environment in which it is received does not change. Over time, this repetition becomes the dominant feature of daily life. Morning, afternoon, evening. Each marked by the same sequence. A slot opens. A tray is passed through. The slot closes. In between, the cell remains constant. Research and legal testimony have documented how individuals respond to these conditions. Some adapt by developing strict personal routines. Others rely on reading, writing, or religious practice where permitted. These coping mechanisms are recorded in first-hand accounts and institutional studies. The system itself does not change in response to these adaptations. It continues to operate on schedule. Oversight exists. Correctional systems are subject to internal audits, external inspections, and, at times, judicial review. Reports assess whether facilities meet established standards for safety, sanitation, and nutrition. These assessments are part of the public record. They confirm that meals are served. They confirm that procedures are followed. They do not capture the full experience of living within the system. That experience remains largely contained within the cell. Behind each door, the same conditions apply. The same lighting. The same dimensions. The same sequence of events. Across days, weeks, and years. In maximum security units, duration varies. Some individuals are housed for limited periods. Others remain for extended terms, depending on classification, behavior, and institutional policy. During that time, the structure remains unchanged. Meals continue to arrive at set intervals. The tray continues to pass through the same opening. The act of eating continues to take place in the same space. There are no external markers of progress. No visible shift in environment. Only the repetition of process. From an administrative perspective, the system is functioning as intended. It delivers food. It maintains order. It limits risk. From within the cell, the experience is defined by continuity. One meal follows another. Each identical in method. Each contained within the same boundaries. The record shows what is provided. It shows how it is delivered. It shows that the system remains in place. What it does not show is how that repetition is experienced over time. That remains inside the cell. Unobserved. Unchanged. And ongoing. If you found this examination useful, you can continue the conversation by sharing your perspective or questions below. Engagement helps bring attention to documented conditions like these, and supports continued reporting on systems that are often out of public view.